नारायणं सुरगुरुं जगदेकनाथं भक्तप्रियं सकललोकनमस्कृतं च त्रैगुण्यवर्जितमजं विभुमाद्यमीशं वन्दे भवघ्नममरासुरसिद्धवन्द्यं नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये महत्त्वात् भारवत्वात् च महाभारतमुच्यते निरुक्तमस्य यो वेद सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते यदि हास्ति ततन्यत्र यन्ने हास्ति न कुत्रचित् देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुं शागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधां गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम् हरिः ओम्. Good morning everyone. Shubhodaya. Welcome to the weekly Pratipadartha room that we conduct every Saturday. There are a couple of things that we do under this Purushottama Yoga Club under the Bhagavad-Gita theme. There are a few things that we do under Bhagavad-Gita and a couple of things that we do under Valmiki Ramayana. Both are essentially academic exercises. For Bhagavad-Gita, we do daily Parayana in an assisted chanting fashion. Every day we chant approximately 100 shlokas that will help us complete the full Bhagavad-Gita Parayana in a week. And week on week we celebrate this Gita Saptaha. It's a lead and follow format, primarily aimed at helping us attain that Vakshuddhi, clarity of speech, clear pronunciation, clear recitation. The repeatedly more and more we do it, we get better with the recitation. And once we start chanting the shlokas clearly, we should be able to locate the words properly. And once we do that, then Artha Chintana becomes all the more meaningful when we do the when we get down to understanding the meanings. So this is what we are doing. So today in the morning, 6 o'clock, we met and chanted the last two chapters of Bhagavad-Gita. Tomorrow morning, we will begin a new cycle with chapters 1 and 2. Sundays, we chant chapters 1 and 2. Mondays, we chant chapters 3, 4. Tuesdays, we chant chapters 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. We complete the entire Bhagavad-Gita cycle with chapters 17 and 18 on Saturdays. And we did that today. Some time ago, an hour ago, we completed that. And we meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, we meet for a Pratipadartha. The format is that some of us on the stage that you see are primarily facilitators. We will be reading through the script. Vijayji has pinned the web link that we use for reference during the course of the study. We basically look at word by word, trying to understand what Gita Acharya, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, has spoken, trying to see what exactly are the meaning, purely from a grammatical perspective with our limited understanding. If there are any limitations, if there are any inadequacies in terms of the way in which we present this meaning, if there is anything additional to be added, not opinions, but from the word breakdown, please to come up on stage and help us. The whole purpose is as a community, we gain the fundamental understanding of Bhagavad-Gita in a much more stronger way. That's the whole purpose. So far we have covered until the 9th shloka of the 9th chapter. Today we are looking at shloka number 10 onwards. That's what the room title says. So we will continue from shloka number 10 of the 9th adhyaya. The story so far is that the Bhagavad-Gita, the way we see, most of the commentaries, they try to break the entire list of 18 chapters into 3 sections. Now, the first 6 chapters is one shatka or the hexad. The next 6 chapters is the second shatka or the second hexad. And the last 6 chapters, chapter number 13 to 18, is the final shakta or the final hexad, the third hexad. And there are themes that people try to see as coming out. In simplistic way, some people think of the first shakta to be jnana, the second shakta to be bhakti, and the third shakta to be the vairagya. So that's the way progressively the teaching from Bhagavan Krishna is trying to instill in the mind of Arjuna. Jnana, Bhakti, Vairagya. What is Jnana? The Bhagavad Jnana. What is Bhakti? The Bhagavad Arpana. Vairagya, in that state of autopilot way. Like, you stay disconnected and continue offering yourselves completely. Some people comment about the 3 shaktas to be representing the Tattvam Asi. There are some people who think that the 3 shaktas represent Sadhana, Vibhuti, Kaivalya. Those are the last 3 chapters of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. There are different ways in which we see. The way I am trying to see the 3 shaktas is coming from the second shloka of the second adhyaya, where the first shakta is trying to help us become Arya, which is a Kartavya Sadhaka. The second shakta helps us become Swargapara, where we achieve our greatness. And the final Shatka is the Kirtikara, where we can establish a very good name for ourselves that can remain for eternity. At the end of our life, this Parshva Sharira, when we drop off this body, the only thing that remains for all of us is the name. How well people remember us. So that is what Krishna spoke as the three essential things that Arjuna is running away from. Right? When the Vishada dawned upon him, when this depression dawned upon Arjuna, the first thing that Krishna spoke was that, hey Arjuna, you are trying to do something that is anarya, that is unlike an arya, that is aswargakara, that is not giving you any swarga position, that is akirtikara, that will give you a bad kirti, that will give you a bad name. Right? So contrary to that, the three purposes will be the arya jushta, the swargapara, and the kirtikara. Whatever we do has to be abiding to these three. And perhaps the three shatkas, the first six shatka, the first six chapters, was primarily helping us to become kartavya sadhaka. That is where karma becomes the center. There is a karma yoga, there is a jnana karma sannyasa yoga, there is a karma sannyasa yoga, there is a dhyana yoga. So the whole emphasis is on karma, how to do that, so that we can become arya, that we can kartavya sadhaka. The next shatka is all about Swarga, how to attain higher and higher position. It all starts with the Vishesha Jnana, right? Vijnana, Jnana Vijnana. That's the seventh Adhyaya, right? Seventh Adhyaya began with Jnana Vijnana. Jnana is Bhagavad-Jnana. Vijnana is the Vistarana, the details around how to understand that. When it's very easy in the first Shatka to say Sarvam Khaluvidam Brahma, everything that is Brahma. But how to do the chintana? It's not easy, right? It's not easy to take the whole and say, okay, think about the whole. We have to think about the parts to look at the whole in total, right? So the looking at the part is where the fun starts, right? The vistarana, the vijnana is that vistara jnana, that vishishta jnana, that vikrishta jnana, that vividhata jnana, that various multiplicities of the Bhagavan. That's what we started looking at in the seventh chapter. Right? Very beautifully, he gives a lot of details around his para prakriti, apara prakriti, within the prakriti, the asura prabhava, the Devi prabhava, then how the jnani. There are multiple ways, and examples are given. Very nicely, the examples are given. To begin with, any kind of a siddhi, any kind of a suitableness, any kind of a readiness to use. Right? That is a siddhi, right? We use that in our local languages, hey, get this person siddha. Siddha padisu in Kannada we say, get them ready. Anything that is ready for use, that is siddhi. That is there is Bhagavan Amsha, there is Bhagavad Amsha within those siddhis, right? And then the para apara prakritis, the different panchabhuta, the tanmatras. He explains all of that, and then the experiences, rasa in the water, the taste, the good smell, the good sound, the good taste, all of this, and then whatever we experience as energy, the radiance, from the sun, the moon, among the people, the Josh that we carry, all of this, and even karma in a dharma-baddha life, even the karma, the desires that we carry in a dharmic life is also Bhagavan, right? So he explains that so beautifully, the seventh chapter. That takes us to the eighth chapter because Arjuna asks a few questions at the beginning of the eighth chapter. Now this is very critical. These eight set of questions from Arjuna is what driving us all along to 8th chapter, 9th chapter, and the 10th chapter, the way we know. That the three chapters of Bhagavad-Gita are primarily triggered from the same set of 8 questions from Arjuna. And Krishna is elaborating on that, and that is what we are currently looking at. Right? The 8 questions are Kim Tat Brahma? What is that Brahma? Kim Adhyatma? What is Adhyatma? Kim Karma? What is karma? Hey Purushottama. Adibhutam cha kim? What is Adibhutam? Adidaivam cha uchyate. What is Adidaiva? Adiyajnaha kaham. What is Adiyajna? Adiyajnaha kaha? And who is Adiyajna? Right? And Prayana kale cha katham jneyosi. How should we think about you during Prayana kala? These are the 8 questions. Right? That's where the 8th chapter began. And Krishna briefly answers those 8-fold questions. Akshara Brahma Paramam. Brahma is that Parama Akshara. Parama Akshara Subhava is the Brahma. Akshara is there is Shara Akshara. Kutastaha Akshara iti Uchyate is something that we hear in the 15th chapter. The one at the extreme top, the one at the summit is the Akshara without any kind of a destruction. The Parama Brahma. Para Brahma is the Akshara. Right? That's the Brahma that I am I am not talking about this Chaturmukha Brahma or any other entity. I am talking about the Akshara Parama Brahma. Swabhavaha Adhyatmaha. Swasya Bhavaha Adhyatmaha. The thoughts around the self, the jijnasa around the self, the path of the creation, that special creation, right? That brings about the bhava for Bhuta Rashi. That is the karma. We popularly say, right? Yad bhavam tad bhavasi. So bhava and the bhuti, they have a strong correlation. Bhava and karma, they have a strong correlation. Right? We can do more and more chintana around this, and we will do. Right? But briefly, karma is not just any action. Action that brings the bhava among the bhuta rashi. Right? That's the karma. And there are nice bhava, there are bad bhava. Right? So that's where perhaps the emphasis has been thoroughly, constantly, has been to do the prakriti niyata karma, swabhava niyata karma. And that is what dharma, right? Dharma then becomes the swabhava niyata karma becomes the dharma. My swadharma is my swabhava niyata karma. My swabhava is rooted in prakriti. And again, prakriti is a beautiful word, right? While in English we understand prakriti to be nature, in Sanskrit we see that prakriti. Kriti is action, something that is done. Kriti, we know, something that is created is Kriti. There is action in Krita, right? So, and what prakrita? What pra can be prakarshana, okay, which is enlighteningly, okay, prakatita, like, revealingly, Krita. Prabhavat, Krita, done with a lot of influence. And also, Prakriti has its own prabhava. Prabhavati tat Kriti. Like, the Kriti that bears its influence on the rest of the forces around, right? That's the prakriti. So there is a strong correlation between karma, swabhava, prakriti, right? We will see that the more and more we contemplate, and this was dropped as a hint in the third chapter also. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Karma is rooted through that Brahma, because Brahma, that Parabrahma, created the prakriti. Prakriti gave the swabhava, and swabhava, whatever is happening in between, is the karma, right? And we have our own karma to add to it. If it is in line with the prakriti, the larger prakriti, then everything is in equilibrium. If we do something against our swabhava, which is against our prakriti, then we are adding some undesired forces. Then there will be consequences. Consequences not on the prakriti, consequences not on the parabrahma, but consequences on us. Because parabrahma remains avyaya, prakriti remains akshara. Right? The prakriti remains the way it is. Parabrahma remains forever. If we do something wrong, then it will have an impact on us, because something is then correcting itself. Right? So we will have an impact. And that's where repeatedly, now, if you want to do punya work, you do your prakriti niyata karma, swabhava niyata karma. Right? That's what. So that bhava, the one that action that brings about the bhava for the bhuta rashi, that is the karma. He explains very clearly. Right? Very beautiful explanation. And he explains what is adibhuta. Adibhutaha ksharaha, kshara bhavaha, adibhutam ksharo bhavaha. Whatever is destructible, that is, bhuta, adibhuta, towards. See, adhi is the word like, prati. Like, adhi is like in reference to. In reference to atma, adhyatma, adhyatma. In reference to daiva, it is adhidaiva. In reference to bhuta, it is adhibhuta. In reference to yajna, is adhiyajna. The way we need to understand adhi, there is a upasarga. Like, adhi gets added as a prefix to understand that, to make us understand it's towards that. Kuritu, prati. Like, that's the way we need to understand that. And so adhiyajna, before that, adhibhutaha ksharaha bhavaha. Okay, Purushaha cha adhidaivatam. Very beautiful, right? Daivatamsha is basically Purusha, Paurusha. Paurusha comes from Purusha, right? Puresheti, like, the one inside the Pura. Now see, when we look into the water, let's look at the ocean, right? There is one Purusha, there is one force acting on the same water, that is evaporating the water and then raising it into the clouds. And within the cloud, which is the same water, there is another Purusha which is making it compress, condense, and then kind of release as droplets, right? Within the same water, there is another Purusha, which is perhaps helping the sailor on the west coast of USA. Like, the sailor. There could be another Purusha which is helping a surfer to sail through. Within the same water, there is another Purusha which is doing the Poshakatva for all the aquatic life. And within the same water, there is another Purusha which is perhaps acting like a poison. And that is where whenever something crazy happens, we tend to bow down to different devatas, right? Adidaiva, devata ganas, like Indra for something, Chandra for something, Surya for something, Marut ganas for something, the Devi, different Devis for something. We have this habit of bowing down because when the forces are not the Purusha, the Paurusha is undesirable. We want it to happen in a slightly course-corrected way, right? So we then bow down to those Devatamsha. So Adidaiva is Purusha, basically the one that creates the force behind the Bhuta. There is Bhuta, which is all the material plane, but there is a force acting behind them to make it appear in a certain way, right? Water is there, which is the Bhuta, Apo. Apo is one of the Bhuta, but there is a Purusha behind the Apo, which will make it a wave, which will make it an evaporated droplet, which will make it a rain, which will make it a stream, which will make it the current, it will make it, multiple different things. Sap, there are different ways in which the Purusha can act, right? So, Purushaha cha adidaivatam. Adiyajnaha ahameva. He asks, who is Adiyajna? Ahameva. When we see the Sankara Bhashya, it very clearly articulates Yajno Vai Vishnu. This is again not his own creation, but he's just quoting it from, Bhagavad Pada is quoting it from the Veda. Yajno Vai Vishnu is what he says. This entire Yajna itself is Vishnu, right? So Adi Yajna Ahameva. The way we need to understand that is like, when we look into some of the other scriptures like Purusha Sukta and things like that, Yajnena Yajnamaya Janta Devaha, Yat Purushena Havisha. When we look into multiple of those lines, when there was nothing to as creation, right? In the silent state, in the Ratri Kala, in the silent state, when things had to be created, the Bhagavan offered himself into the yajna. He had nothing to offer, so he offered himself. So we came by the yajna where he offered himself into it. So that is that Adi Yajna, that big yajna where the creation happened. By the way, that creation is live and direct. It is still happening, right? We continue to be part of that creation and we continue to be part of that yajna, right? That ahameva, Adi Yajna ahameva. Dehe, how? Arjuna is asking two questions. Adi Yajna kaha? Adi Yajna katham? How? Who is Adi Yajna and how is he? How does he? By being in the Deha, in everybody's Deha. The Dehi, in their Hriddesha is the Bhagavan. That's what we hear in the 5th chapter also, right? Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Jnatva. And we also started with the 15th Adhyaya. Where he says, Sarvasya Chaham Sannivishtaha. The Bhagavanta is there in the Hriddesha of all the Jiva Ganas. That's where, when the bhakti becomes extremely sacred and extremely fine tuned and extremely powerful, that's where they say that automatically you unlock the Anahata Chakra. Anahata Chakra is in the heart Pradesh. When you look into the 7 chakras of the Kundalini, that Anahata gets activated there, right? So the Bhagavanta is there in all the Dehas, Dehe. And he's also telling, oh Deha Bhratambara, oh great among the Dehis, right? Oh, great among the Dehi, I am the Adi Yajna by being in the Deha. And you have a special quality of mind, he's indirectly telling Arjuna. You are Deha Pratambara. I am the Adi Yajna who is in the Deha of everyone. So he explains very briefly, Sankshipta, but I think at one point in time, he makes two very interesting statements. One, he says, Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti. We are talking about the Akshara Brahma, right? Ashtatmaka Prashna gave rise to Ashtatmaka Brahma. Because when we look into all of these eightfold questions, whether we talk about Brahma, Karma, Adhyatma, Bhuta, everything is eventually part of that same Brahma. It is that Brahma. But it has been broken down into 8 different parts. Right? So at the end of the day, all of that is Brahma. And we are now talking about that Ashtatmaka Brahma is now led into this Akshara Brahma, this entire Parabrahma. And he starts explaining the Parabrahma, and then he makes a couple of interesting points, right? He makes one statement where he says, Yadaksharam Veda Vidaha Vadanti. The learned people, whichever Akshara they speak about, And yet aksharam ichchantah, okay, vitaraga yatan, yadichantu vishanti yadyatayo vitaraga, like the vitaraga yatis, the yatis who are detached from any kind of an attachment, that kind of a yatis or the yogis, karma yogis, whichever akshara they enter into, pravishanti, like vishanti yadyatayo vitaraga, and yet ichchantah, desiring which akshara, brahmacharyam charanti, the brahmacharis, whichever austerities they perform, whatever celibate life, or extremely, like when we say this brahmacharya, it could be the Naistiki brahmacharya, uh, extremely selfless act, giving up, renounce from the material world. So, in a brief way, when we look into this, right, whether it's in the jnana marga or the karma marga or the tapo marga, in whichever marga you offer, tatte padam sangrahena pravakshi. I will talk about the akshara in a very, very detailed manner. He mentions that statement at one point in time in the 8th chapter. And also he makes another statement, Purusha Sapara Partha Bhaktya Labhyastvananyaya. That Supreme Purusha, that Supreme Brahma, Bhaktya Eva Labhya, na Anyaya, not from any other means. That has perhaps taken us to this 9th chapter, right? Because 9th chapter has some amazing expressions of bhakti in it. Now, within the 9th chapter, the first 3 shlokas that we saw are primarily context setting. This is Guhyatama, Idam Tute Guhyatamam, Pravakshyami Anusuyave. You have no Asuya in you, hey Arjuna. That's the reason I'm telling you this, right? Let me reveal this Guhyatama Shastra, which is told to you only because you are clean. And this is Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam. Whatever I'm going to tell you now is Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam, Yajñatva Ashubhat Mokshase, knowing which you will be freed from, liberated from Ashubhatva. Right? And Raja Vidya, and he explains the nature of this revelation which is about to come. It is Raja Vidya. No, Raja Vidya can be Rajanam Vidya or Raja Iva Vidya. Like, it's the Vidya like a Raja, which is a Pradhana Vidya, or Rajanam Vidya, the Vidya suitable for a Raja. And I think both are valid. Both are valid understandings, and we will do more and more Chintana we do. I think we will get more and more understanding towards the same. But it is Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya, again, Rajanam Guhya, the secrets of the Raja, or Raja Iva Guhya. Like, it is the Pradhana secret, or it is a secret of the sovereignty, or the behavior called the sovereign. Right? Pavitram, it is the clean, it is the pure. Uttamam, it is the supreme. Pratyaksha avagamam, it can be experienced directly. Dharmyam, it is what will protect you. Susukam kartum, it is easy to follow. So these are the qualities of the Shastra that is about to come now, right? And he also says Ashraddhadhana Purushaha, but the Purusha without Shraddha, right? Shraddha has a very beautiful name, Sumanatva, Shuddha Matitva, Anindakatva, Ananyagatitva. When we look into these 4 aspects, we understand what Shraddha is. Because when we look into Amara Kosha, anything, Shraddha doesn't have another Samanartaka Pada, a very, very clear word, right? It's a unique word. In English, we try to translate it as faith, belief, trust. A lot of things are there, but I think it's a combination of all. A lot of these things bundled together will help us understand what Shraddha could mean, right? Shraddha is Sumanatva, clean mana, Shuddhamatitva, clear buddhi, right? Anindakatva, without any kind of bad thoughts, and Ananyagatitva, with a very clear mind that there is no other gati, there is no other way. Like if I go to a doctor, no, I need to have a Shraddha, right? Otherwise, I'll be taking 100 opinions from different people. The Shraddha means that no, I don't have another way, I don't have another path. This is the path. Hey, doctor, I come to you. You please cure me. Then it works much better. Today we are in a different Sankara state where we don't trust anybody. When you go to the doctor suggests something, then we take 10 different opinions. But Shraddha means Ananya Gatitva. Right? There are multiple things put together. But if you don't have these things, if you don't have the Sumana, if you don't have the Shuddhamati, if you don't have the Anindakatva kind of a attitude, if you don't have the Ananya Gati kind of an attitude, then there is a problem. If you don't have Shraddha, those people who are ashraddhanaha, asya dharmasya aprapya, not getting the essence of this dharma, okay, they again return back to samsara, mrityu samsara, into this rigmarole, into this turmoil of jara marana kind of a thought, which is very very ashubha, right? And then from the fourth shloka onward, he starts explaining about that Brahma. At the end of the day, it's the Bhagavad Tattva. This entire thing, the second shaka, chapter number 7 to chapter number 12, it's all about how to do the chintana of the Bhagavan, how to offer ourselves to that path. Because that is the way we can become Swargapara. We can unlock the maximum from the potential we carry in each of our birth. See, Bhagavan has given us so many opportunities. Bhagavan has given us so many capabilities. It's for us to make use of that and unlock the best potential that we can be. Right? What is the best that Bharata can be? Is my sadhana. Right? What is the best Sudhaji can be? That is her sadhana. What is the best Rameshji can be? That is his sadhana. Right? What is the best Vijayji can be? That's his sadhana. If we all have to unlock our best potential, these are the essential knowledge, teaching that we need to bear. We need to internalize. Upadharaya is a beautiful phrase that Krishna uses very, very soon. But he starts from shloka number 4, 5, 6. He explains how, in a different dimension, we can understand the same Brahma that was explained in the previous couple of chapters. Chapter 7 was talking about him. Chapter 8 was also talking about him. Chapter 9 is also talking about him. But Krishna now decides to speak about the same with a different dimension. He says, Maya tatamidam sarvam. Everything has come from me, this Jagat. From the Avyakta Murtina, Maya Avyakta Murtina, from my unmanifested body. His body is unlike our body. It is unmanifest. Right? His Atma, his Sharira, they are all the same. His Murti, his Atma, they are all the same. Right? We shouldn't see any differentiation between them. His body cannot be like our body. Like there is a lot of belief system in the society. Like, this is the place where Krishna dropped his body. This is his body party, which is still living here on the earth. There are many such stories. But what Krishna is telling here is that, he is Avyakta Murti. Like, his Sharira is an unmanifested body. What we see, what people saw as Krishna is the magic. Like, it is not the body, very similar to what Arjuna's body could be or somebody else's body could be. But he is Avyakta Murti. And he also says, Matsthani Sarva Bhutani. Every Bhuta Rashi is in me. Nacha aham teshu avastitaha. But I am not in them. I am not dependent on them. And then, Nacha Matsthani Bhutani. And I am also not, then there is a contradiction. Matsthani Bhutani, Nacha Matsthani Bhutani. Between the two shlokas, shloka 4 and 5, we see contradiction. Now, that gets clarified in the next shloka, where he says, Vayu Akasha. When we say Vayu is in Akasha, but Vayu is not in Akasha. Right? Because, see, when we look into the Charvaka Tattva, we spoke about that. The Charvakas don't even believe there is Akasha. For them, there is only 4 Tattva. Vayu, Agni, Apo, Bhumi. These are the 4 elements. That's it. That's where their Tattva ends. Their entire Tattva tree ends with only 4 things. There is no Atma, there is no Manas, there is no Buddhi, there is no Ahankara, nothing. They don't even talk about all of those. The 4 material things. That is the Tattva for them. So Akasha, Vayu. Similarly, just like how Akasha is holding the Mahatvayu, Mahatvayu can move anywhere he wants. And within Akasha, similarly, we are all in Bhagavan, but he is not restricting us anywhere. So we are in him as much as we are not in him. That's the kind of a clarification he gives with the 6th shloka. And then few more shlokas, like, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti. From shloka 7, he starts revealing more about Prakriti. Because Prakriti is karma. See, all the 8 questions from Arjuna at the beginning of 8th chapter is what continues to be addressed in the 9th chapter, is what continues to be addressed in the first 11 shlokas of the 10th chapter. Because there is no more points coming from Arjuna. Krishna goes on addressing the same set of questions from Arjuna. So now he is talking about Prakriti. Prakriti is what the karma. Shankara Bhasha very clearly says karma is Prakriti. Right? So Prakriti is, so he talks about Prakriti. Now, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. They all acquire my own Prakriti ho Kaunteya, all these Jiva Bhuta Rashi. Kalpa, at the end of the Kalpa, they go back again and at the beginning of the kalpa, I bring them back again, right? So, and prakritim swamavastabhya visajami, and my own prakriti I will take and then bring them about again and again and again, right? And this bhuta grama is helplessly under this spell of coming, expansion, contraction. The bhuta ganas come at the time of the beginning of the kalpa. The bhuta ganas contract at the time of the end of the kalpa, kalpakshaya, right? And then he says, finally, we saw this is the last shloka we saw previously, shloka number 9. Nachaman tani karmani vibadnanti. While I do all of these activities, these karmas do not bind me. Nachaman tani karmani vibadnanti hi dhananjaya. Udasinavat asinam asaktam teshu karmasu. Very beautiful. I think we spoke about this also briefly. I stay as though I am indifferent. He doesn't say I am indifferent. As though udasinavat. I stay as though I am indifferent, but he is interested. We will see that a little later. Again, when we look at this chapter as the Raja Vidya, as a Pradhana Vidya, or Raja Vidya as a Rajanam Vidya, which is the Vidya of the Raja, they both make sense, right? See, as a leader, as a great leader, this is how we have to be. Udasinavat. There is a thin line difference between delegation and abdication. As a Raja, he has to delegate everything. Like a sovereign body cannot do anything on its own. Raja should not do anything on its own. The stories are such that even some of his nitya karma, like taking bath and all, somebody is doing it for him. He doesn't do anything. Like Raja shouldn't do anything. So while doing everything, he is as though doing nothing. Right? He's doing a lot. He's making people do, but he's not doing anything. I think for this Udasinam Asinam Asaktam Teshu Karmasu is a beautiful line to do chintana if you want to understand how a leadership activity should be. Right? In leadership also, like for example, the more and more entry level jobs we do, right? Our job description can be extremely prescriptive. The higher and higher and higher we go, the job descriptions tend to become a little woolly. They don't become very clear. You have to understand, like like how we say Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's a very woolly definition. It's not a very clear-cut definition. But when we say Rasoham Apsu, Prabhasmi Shashi Surya Yoho, it becomes very, very clear. Right? So Raja Vidya, the more and more Raja Iva we have to live, more and more leader type we have to live, we have to now start getting a little bit of those qualities of the Bhagavan in us. So Udasinavatu Asinam, that's a very important trait for a leader. We have to stay as though indifferent, as though, because then we will be accused of micromanagement, right? Udasinavatu we have to stay, but we are not Udasina. We are not lazy at all. We are not indifferent at all. We are keen on what's happening, but we behave as though we are indifferent. Okay, you do it. You fall, I will let you fall. You get up, I will appreciate you. If it is going out of control, I will help you. He will come. That's what this supreme Lokadyaksha, the supreme Raja, he also said, right? Yada yadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati. Whenever dharma goes extremely into the abysmal limits, I will come and help you. I will come again and again and again in different yuga, yuga after yuga, I come and protect. That's what he spoke, right? So this 9th shloka is very nice. That's what we stopped at in the previous session. No, nachaman tani karmani vibadhanti. All the activities that I do, they don't affect me at all. I think there is a beautiful line. Nakarmana vardite no kaniyam. The one who does the regulation of all these activities, will karma have any bearing on him? Right? When we look into some of the Dasa Sahitya, one beautiful example that I can think of is in Harikatamrita Sara, Jagannatha Dasa. That there is a line, Kada Kabbina Hidudu Badayalu, Vedanayalu Hagaligandate Adudenai Anadagavete Yeno Madidaru. Like Kada Kabbina Hidudu Badayalu. When you beat a molten iron, like that hot iron rod, tap tap tap, the iron smith will have to keep hitting the iron, right? So Kada Kabbina Hidudu Badayalu. Now when you see Kada Kabbina, when you see that hot, red hot iron, there is iron in it, there is Agni in it, there is fire in it, there is iron in it. They both are there. And so what Dasaru is telling is Kada Kabbina Hidudu Badayalu. ವೇದನೆಯು ಲೋಹಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಆದುದೇನೈ ಅನಳಗ. The pain, when you keep hitting the iron, the deformation is happening only to the iron, not to the Agni. Agni is unaffected in that act. Right? So in everything that, and Agni is one amsha of Bhagavan. And the reason I brought in Agni here is, in the Udasina Vatu, Nibat, there is no bondage of that act on Agni. There is no bearing of that act on Agni. Agni is unharmed, unaffected by all of these things. So the one who does the niyamaka, the one who is the supreme niyamaka of all the activities of this planet, none of these activities will have any bearing on him. He remains unaffected. That's the reason we repeatedly keep calling him Avyaya, Sanatana, Akshara, different names, right? So this is where we stop, right? Sloka number 10 is where we get into. Please refer to this website if possible. This website is developed by the Aurobindo School, Professor Dr. Sampadananda. He has put this information together. It's quite helpful for what we intend to achieve, right? In terms of looking at the word by word breakdown, all of these things are there. So Vijayji has pinned the link under the room title. Click on that, we are directly taken to the 10th shloka. So we now look into the 10th shloka. The 10th shloka reads like this. Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Right? So this is the shloka. Maya, we will see the padacheda. When you scroll down the web page a little bit, you will see there is a padacheda. Maya adhyakshena prakritihi suyate sachara acharam. Sachara acharam suyate. Hetuna anena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. These are the words. When you put them into the anvaya, the prose order, it sounds like this. He kaunteya. Maya adhyakshena prakritihi sachara acharam suyate. Anena hetuna jagat viparivartate. What does that mean? When we click on dictionary, hey Kaunteya, hey Kuntiputra, hey Arjun. Now this is where he comes closer. Maya adhyakshena, by my adhyakshata. Adhi akshnoti. No, upari. Adhi is upari. Upari akshnoti. One who is doing the overlooking. So he is the overlooker, onlooker, the supreme. He is the presiding. He is the presiding Bhagavan. Maya adhyakshena, where he is the poshaka, right? Maya adhyakshena. Prakritihi sachara acharam suyate. This Prakriti produces the chara achara manifestation by my adhyakshata. That's why we call him Lokadhyaksha, Suradhyaksha, Dharmadhyaksha, Prakrita. See, this is interesting. Between the 9th chapter, some versions of Bhagavad-Gita call this chapter as the Bhakti Yoga. Because there are a lot of words which are common between this chapter. We hear a lot of Bhagavad Nama mentioned in Vishnu Sahasranama in this chapter. So Adhyakshata is one. Lokadhyaksha, Suradhyaksha. This is what we hear in the Vishnu Sahasranama, right? So Maya Adhyakshena eva prakritihi sachara acharam suyate. This Prakriti produces all chara achara jantus or ganas by my Adhyakshata only, O Kaunteya. Anena hetuna jagat viparivartate. Anena hetuna, because of this only, jagat, this word, viparivartate, produces cycles. Parivartana. Parivartana is basically changes. V parivartana is vishishtata parivartana. Right? So whenever we hear the V as a upasarga, we have to imagine there is some special vishishtha, vishesha, vikrishtha, vistara, vividha. Like, this is the speciality. The different elaborated, special, top, supreme changes are happening because of me, by this reason only. By my adhyakshata, this Prakriti is producing all chara achara entities, and because of this alone, The world is constantly changing. The translation, according to this website, says proceeds in cycles. Right? Vritti, vritti, it's also cycle, coming back to the samsara and going back. So there are different ways in which vrit they have stressed on the root called vrit, from which we see the vritti. Vritti is also in cycles. Like vritti can go in cycles. So there are different ways in which people tend to savor the same word in terms of what meaning it can hold on us. Right? So basically continues to explain the Bhagavad Tattva, the Brahma Swarupa. A part of the Brahma Swarupa is this Prakriti. Because right from shloka number 7, we've been hearing about Prakriti, right? Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yati Mamikam. So for the next few shlokas, I think we will only talk about Prakriti. Krishna is talking about Prakriti, so we will understand Prakriti more better. And what is Prakriti? Prabhavati tat Kriti. The one Kriti of the Bhagavan that has a very strong influence on all of us, that has a strong bearing on all our lives. Bearing in terms of producing our own bhava. Because Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Karaha Karma, that itself is Prakriti. That action that produces the bhava of the people is the karma, which is the Prakriti. Right? So our karma should be Swabhava driven. When we do that, we will then add into the Prakriti, in sync with the Prakriti. When we do Anya Dharma karma, then it becomes not in sync with the Prakriti. So that's where you need to understand. So he says it is his Prakriti, and by his own Adhyakshata, this Prakriti produces Chara Achara, and because of that same thing, this Jagat is undergoing massive changes. Right? That is what Krishna is telling here. Let's see what Aurobindo translation says. When we come back to the main page of the shloka, we see Aurobindo interpretation. I am the presiding control of my own action of the nature. Okay, I will ignore the bracketed portion because then opinions come. The creative spirit who causes her to produce all that appears in the manifestation. Because of this, O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, the world proceeds in cycles, or the world constantly is changing. Viparivartate, Vishishtata Parivartate. The change is the only constant. When we say in the universe, in the physics also, we believe in this term called entropy. No, it's a measure of disorderliness. There is a constant disorderliness happening. That's Prakriti. There is constant change happening. Viparivartate. And so now he is explaining more and more about the Brahma Tattva, but he is now addressing it in a different angle altogether. Now he is talking about Prakriti. Right? This is very essential. He briefly started speaking, elaborating about Prakriti in the 7th chapter, but let us see what more comes in this chapter. Right? So with that, we move on to the next shloka. Like Adhyakshata. Adhyakshata, we spoke, right? Adi, which means Upari Akshnoti or Vyapnoti. Right? Iti Adhyakshaha. He's like a Pusha. He stays at an arm's distance away and then oversees everything. Okay, that takes us to the next shloka, shloka number 11. It reads like this. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajanantu mama bhuta maheshwaram. Beautiful. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajanantu mama bhuta maheshwaram. What's the padacheda giving us? Avajananti mam mudhaha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajanantah mama bhuta maheshwaram. See, bhuta maheshwaram, that's another term we hear in Vishnu Sahasranama. See, this section, right, when he starts from shloka number 10 onward, I think, right? This is all about Brahma from Bhagavan's own words. Through Bhagavan's own words, we are now trying to understand Bhagavan. We hear similar words, similar expressions coming from, Bhishmacharya when he starts narrating the Vishnu Sahasranama. So there is a lot of common element between this chapter and Vishnu Sahasranama. That's why most Sampradaya, after chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, quite often they are not. It concludes with one shloka from the 9th Adhyaya, which is Ananya Chintayanto Mam Ye Janaha Paryupasate. That shloka automatically comes many, many times. But nonetheless, right, the Bhuta Maheshwara is one word in Vishnu Sahasranama also. But other than that, let's see what the Anvaya gives us. Hey Kaunteya, because that's the Sambodhana, that's a reference taken. That's how he addressed Arjuna, right? Hey Kaunteya, Mama Param Bhavam Ajanantah Mudhaha Manushim Tanumashritam Mam Iti Bhuta Maheshwaram Avajananti. Okay, what does that mean? Hey Arjuna, Mama Param Bhavam Ajanantah Mudhaha. The Mudhas who do not understand my Parabhava. Mama is my, Param is supreme, Bhava is the nature of being, my expressions, my manifestation, my being. Ajanantaha, knowing not of, not knowing of. Mudhaha, the deluded minds, the Mudhaha, Mama Param Bhavam Ajanantaha, not knowing my supreme self, supreme nature of being. Manushim Tanum Ashritam iti Mam Avajananti. Mam, Bhuta Maheshwaram, me, who's the Bhuta Maheshwara? Bhutanam Maheshwara, iti Bhuta Maheshwara, right? The Maheshwara, the Lord of all Bhutarashi. I, who is the Bhuta Maheshwara, they Avajananti, they mistake. Ava is adversity. There is some adversity. Ava, whenever we hear Ava as a prefix, it's some contrary. Avajananti, mistakenly despise me. Jananti is no. They misknow me, or no, there is a misinterpretation about who I am. There is a wrong understanding about me. Me, who is Bhuta Maheshwara, these Mudha, they have a wrong understanding about me that I am Manushim Tanum Ashritam iti. That I too have lodged into a human type body. Very clearly, he's making it absolutely black and white. His body is not like a Manushya body. He has not entered a Manava body at all. So when Devaki gave birth to Krishna, there are many stories that say, oh, Devaki carried you for 9 months. No, she never carried him for 9 months. That was all an illusion. He came in his Chaturbhuja form only. In his divine form only he came. Then Vasudeva Devaki requested, don't do that. If Kamsa sees you, he will kill you. Then he retracted, which means he concealed that form. Then he revealed himself in a slightly different way. And then everybody else thought, okay, he is also a human baby. No, he is not. And Mudha, those deluded minds think that he is also Manushim Tanum Ashritam very clearly. So I think this rings very similar to what he spoke in the 7th chapter. There is a lot of repeat of information, repeat of themes between the 7th chapter and the 9th chapter. In the 7th chapter, I think somewhere he says, Avyaktam Yaktimapannam Manyante Mama Buddhayah. This Avyaktam Yaktimapannam Manyante, the one who is unmanifest, got into the manifestation, is what people think about me. Okay, Abuddhayah, people who are fools, Abuddhayah, people without any buddhi, they think that I too was unmanifest earlier and I have got manifest now. Avyaktam Yaktimapannam iti manyante mam Abuddhayah. Param bhavam ajanantaha mama avyayam anuttamam. There also he used a similar expression, right? In the 7th chapter. Param bhavam ajanantaha. They don't know my supreme bhava. Mama avyayam anuttamam param bhavam ajanantaha. My unchangeable supreme bhava, they don't understand. Right? He made the similar statement. And he is making the similar statement here also. Like, people, the deluded ones, they don't know my true nature. They mistake me to be another mortal in a mortal body. Right? So when we do the Bhagavad Chintana, Krishna is now revealing more and more. Right? A lot of times, sometimes we get very close to a CEO. And the CEOs have their duties to be empathetic, And they come down several planes, several notches lower to make us understand certain concepts. But familiarity breeds content, right? A lot of us then think that, oh, he is also like me. And we then start showering content. Like today, a lot of people have solid content for Narendra Modi. I mean, poor guy, he's happy birthday today. Let's wish him great life. He has to serve our country to a great distance from now on also. But a lot of people think that he's an ordinary person. He's just like us. He's a yogi, parama yogi, karma yogi, maybe avatara purusha. We don't know, right? It's not easy to be like him. Dedicated his life completely for the sake of loka sangraha, right? Many people think he's also like me and start slandering him. What all nonsense people have showered on him as adjectives, right? Mudha. They don't understand. I mean, that's a Raja. We are talking about a Raja, but we are talking about the Supreme Raja, Lokadyaksha Krishna. Whenever we have to look at the leadership qualities, one subset of that Krishna's is something that we can do upasana. Then maybe we can, like they say, right? You have to climb up the tree, aim at the skies. Like you look at Krishna as upasana, then maybe I can climb up the tree, and that again is a parama sadhana among our lesser mortal world, right? So for me, climbing up one branch could be a great sadhana. Some of us have lost so much of agility, even to step 100 meters away for a shop to buy something, we start a vehicle. Right? Today, that's how we have come down to. We have so much of ayogyata in us. Yogi is a far-fetched thought. To become a yogi is a far-fetched thought. But nonetheless, Krishna is explaining more and more about that Bhagavad Tattva, about himself, about that Parabrahma, because he said, Bhaktya labhyatu ananyaya and Sangrahena pravakshi. 2 points he made, right? You need to have bhakti, and let me tell you completely. So in this chapter, we will see a lot of elaboration about the Brahma, and slowly, subtly, indirectly, Krishna is also injecting the need for bhakti. And throughout the theme, we can do that contemplation, we can clearly see those two themes clearly coming out. So Krishna clearly says, Mudhaha, Manushim Tanumashritam iti, Avajananti. They don't know. Mama Param Bhavam Ajanantaha. They don't understand my supreme self. Very similar line he said in the seventh chapter also, right? And see, these things, there is pramana for the way we have to interpret this, right? There is constancy of such messages coming even from Puranas, like when we hear the Hayagriva Avatara, very clearly it says Hayagriva is Parama, Paramatma. There is no Manusha Deha, things like that. And similar kind of an assessment we need to apply for other avatars. But let us see what Aurobindo interpretation says. It says, the deluded minds despise me lodged, lodged in the human body. I would say as lodged in the human body. No, Manushim tanum ashitan iti avajananti. As lodged in a human body. Because otherwise, the message is he is lodged in the human body, but people mistake him. No, he's not even lodged in a human body. There is no human body. The translation from this website, maybe it would be better to correct it. Again, these are different. There are different interpretations of the same shloka. They can be, but I feel it's better to think it as not in the human body, as though in the human body. Like deluded minds think that I am lodged in the human body because they don't know my supreme nature of being. I am the Lord of all existences. See, this Bhuta Maheshwara is again beautiful, right? When you look into the second line, Param, Bhavam, Ajanantaha, Mama, Bhuta, Maheshwara. Bhuta is the Bhuta Rashi. Ksharo, Bhutaha, Ksharo Bhavaha, right? Bhuta is all Kshara. All the material world is Bhuta. Maha is Mahat, the Pradhana, Prakriti. Mahat Tattva, Bhuta, Mahat, Ishvara. So Bhuta Maheshwara has Bhuta, Mahat, Ishvara, all three. And that's another Vyutpatti we can look into, right? But nonetheless, it's Lord of all existences. But when you look closely, you see Bhuta, you see Mahat, we see Ishvara. Mahat is the supreme Pradhana Prakriti, the Mula Prakriti, right? So these are different ways in which we can do the Anusandhana or contemplation. More contemplation, I think, perhaps will help us a lot more. I think we will all have our own Archimedes moment, Eureka moment. We will jump up with joy at one point in time after discovering something. We move on to the next shloka, shloka number 12. It reads like this. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasi masurin chaiva prakritim mohini shritaha. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasi masurin chaiva prakritim mohini shritaha. What we get in the padacheda? Mogha ashaha, mogha karmanaha, mogha jnanaha, vichetasaha, rakshasim, asurim cha eva, prakritim, mohinim, shritaha. What happens when we unjumble it and put it back in a proper sentence? The Anvaya reads, Mogha ashaha, mogha karmanaha, mogha jnanaha, vichetasaha, rakshasim, asurim cha mohinim, prakritim eva, shritaha, ashritaha. Right? Almost similar. Anvaya doesn't change much other than in the second line. Let us see what it means. Mogha ashaha. The dictionary says Mogha ashaha is mogha, vain, futile, asha, hopes, asa, ase, asha, desire, no, longings. Mogha ashaha, the futile asha. Mogha karmanaha, the futile karma, actions. Mogha, futile or vain, in vain. Mogha jnanaha, the futile knowledge, knowledges. It's a bahuvachana. Jnana. Vichetataha. Chetas is consciousness. V is special consciousness. In this case, it's Viruddha. V is Vishishta. But what is the Vishishtata? It's a Viruddha. So sometimes V, while in many instances like Vibhuti makes it special Bhuti, Vikarma makes it anti-karma, wrong karma. Similarly, Chetasa, when V gets added, Chetaha is a special Chetas, and speciality here is Viruddha. Viruddha is the opposite. Perverse consciousness. People with bad Chetasa. Rakshasi, Rakshasa, the demonic. Asuri, demonic. Asura is also demonic. Rakshasi is also demonic. But we can't have double adjectives which both mean the same. There has to be something else. So Asura, we normally try to understand it to be people with excessive craving for sense gratification. Asushu rataha, people who are always inclined, attached, attracted towards asu, no, just the prana, which is the indriya, their own gratification, sense experiences. Right? Asushu rataha asuraha. That's the way we tend to understand. So then the punarukti dosha is avoided, because otherwise Rakshasi, Asuri, if they both are the same, then there is an issue. There is in Sanskrit there is very clearly a punarukti dosha. We can't use the same thing for unnecessary reasons. So it has to mean something different. So these Vichetasaha, who have the Asuri, Rakshasi kind of a Mohini Prakriti, Shritaha. Mohana is deluding, Mohita, Mohana, Mohini. Mohini is something that deludes. That kind of a prakriti, nature that is deluding in nature, that gives them the asuri subhava, where they keep on going behind, fulfilling more and more and more and more and more cravings. People who have the rakshasi subhava, right? Vichetataha, who have a bad thought, whatever they desire for, that is the futile desire, moga asha. Whatever they do, it is moga karma. Okay, futile action. Whatever they know is also futile. Because what is the only clean jnana? Bhagavad-Jnana. That is the only knowledge. When we look into the parts and think the parts are everything, then there is vitality. When we see the Bhagavad-Jnana, then we see parts in the whole. When we can make sense of the whole containing its parts and do the chintana of both the parts and the whole, that is the Bhagavad-Jnana. Right? Anything else is a futile knowledge. Okay, whatever we do karma, which is the prakriti niyata karma, subhava niyata karma, that is the proper karma. Anything that is tadviruddha becomes moga karma, karma in vain. And whatever asha, our asha has to be to achieve the Bhagavad bhava. Anything else that we desire for is moga asha. It is futile. It's, and people who have the asuri svabhava, rakshasi svabhava, mohini prakriti shritaha, they are ashrita, they are residing, they are lodged, they are dwelling in the mohini prakriti, the deluding nature. Okay, eva is truly indeed. And very beautifully Krishna is telling. Like, after you understand the Prakriti, in the process of understanding Prakriti, whenever we talk about Prakriti, Prakriti has to be looked into twofold. There is Asura Prakriti, there is Daivi Prakriti. In the Asuri Prakriti, people people dwell in the Mohini Prakriti. People reside in the deluding kind of a Prakriti, and they become Vichetasaha, they become Abuddhayaha, they become unintelligent, they become deluded, they become pervert in their conscious. Okay, whatever Asha they have is Mogha Asha. Whatever karma they do is Mogha Karma. Whatever Jnana they possess, they are all Mogha Jnana. Right? I think the next shloka talks about Devi. So when we talk about Prakriti, from shloka 7, we are speaking about Prakriti, right? So Prakriti, obviously, we'll have to talk about the Devi Amsha and the Asuri Amsha. I think that's where we are looking at the distinction now. Very similar to 7th chapter also. At one point in time, Krishna talks about Prakriti. Tribhir gunamayir bhave yevi sarvam idam jagat. Like, he speaks about the Prakriti there. And then immediately he starts explaining the Daivi Hiesha Gunamayi, Daivi and the Asura. He starts explaining. Here he begins with Asura first, and then maybe the next one talks about the Devi. Let's see what Aurobindo translation says for this. All their hope, Asha, all their action, karma, all their knowledge, jnana, are vain things, moha eva. Okay, they dwell in the Rakshasic, Asuric nature, which deludes the will and the intelligence, which etasaha. I think there is some creativity in this interpretation, but nonetheless, I'll go back to the same thing. People who are the achetasaha people who have mohinim prakritim shtaha, who have taken shelter under the deluding nature. People who are Rakshasim, Asurim, Mohinim, Prakritim Shtaha. People who take shelter in the, deluding, uh, self-excessive indulgences kind of a nature, and Rakshasi, the hurtful nature, right? Those kind of people, whatever they do is Moghasha, Mogha Karma, Mogha Jnana. Right? That's the interpretation. Mm, yeah. So that takes us to the next shloka. Let's go on to the next shloka. In the meanwhile, uh, Ramesh Mahodaya, Vijay Mahodaya, Sudhaji, Shraddhaji, if anybody needs to jump in and make any fine point observation, please do so. Stop me. But I'll be moving on to shloka number 12. Okay, shloka 12 reads like this. Mahatmanastu mam partha दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम् महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्. The padacheda महात्मानः तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिम् आश्रिताः Bhajanti ananya manasaha jnatva bhutadim avyayam. But this is jumbled, right? The words are jumbled. So we unjumble the words and we get the anvaya. Hey Partha, daivim prakritim ashritaha mahatmanaha tu mam bhutadim avyayam jnatva ananya manasaha bhajanti. Very simple. Now he's talking about the Daivi Prakriti people, right? Because we see it. But let's see what it means. Click on dictionary. He Partha, ho Prithasan, ho Arjuna, Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha Mahatmanaha. The Mahatmas who have taken shelter under the Daivi Prakriti, the divine nature. Daivim Prakriti means divine nature. Ashritaha, having taken shelter. Mahatmanaha. Mahatmanaha earlier was used to describe these ultimate jnani, okay, who say Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Okay, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurlabha. Not only Mahatma, they are also extremely rare. These Mahatmas are extremely rare breed. They are not easy to find. Right? That's what Krishna says. These Mahatmas who are extremely rare, they are Devi Prakriti Mashrita. They have taken shelter under the Devi Prakriti too. But unlike the Asuri people, on the other hand, the Mahatmana who keep saying Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam. Because Vasudeva in Ishavasya, they're all they tend to give the same drift in terms of the meaning, right? Vasudeva, Vase Nivasati, Tat Deva. No, Ishavasya Sarvam. So both tend to give us the same flavor. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. This is all him, that Parabrahma. That kind of a Mahatma, the rare Mahatma, he has Devi Prakriti Mashtaha. He has taken shelter under the Devi Prakriti. Very clearly, again, bringing Prakriti has twofold qualities. Devi Prakriti, Asuri Prakriti. Mam Bhutadi Mavyayam Jnatva. Mam, me, Muche, Bhutadi Mavyayam. The Bhutadi is the Adi of the Bhuta, the originator of the Bhuta Rashi, of all existences. Bhavati iti Bhuta. Right? Bhuta means whatever is Bhuta. He is the origin of all Sat. Bhutanam Adi. Bhutadi. Bhutadim Avyayam. That I am imperishable, unchangeable. Not more than imperishable. Avyaya means unchangeable. Now, Vyeti Tat Avyaya. The one that does not change, that is Avyaya. The one changeless. So, knowing me, who is the Adi of all the Bhuta, and Avyaya. Ananya Manasaha, na Anya Manasaha. That's the definition of Shraddha we saw, right? Sumanatva, Shuddhamatitva, Anindakatva, Ananyagatitva, Ananya Manasaha, without any kind of a thought, without any kind of any kind of other mind, mind elsewhere. Mam Bhajanti, they worship me. And worship bhajana comes from vibhajana. They offer themselves unto me into the Bhagavad Karya. Daivameva pare yajnam yogina paryupasate brahmavagna pare yajnam yajnenaivo pajuhvati. There are different people who do different upasanas, and there are some people who, in whatever they do, brahmagni, they offer themselves into the brahmagni, like into that one, and they offer their entire life into that brahmagni. Right? In every action they do, it is basically Brahma Karya. Whether I marry, whether I study, whether I run, whether I work, whether I spend, whether I visit somebody, in everything we see the Bhagavad Karya, right? That kind of a Mahatmana. Because everything else is moha. Like whatever Asuri Swabhava we acquire and whatever nonsense we do, they're all futile actions, they're all in vain actions. On the other hand, the Mahatmas who have taken shelter under the Devi Prakriti, knowing me to be the Bhutadi and the Avyaya, with an undeviating mind, without any kind of a deviation in their mind, they keep offering themselves unto me. Right? That's the meaning of, that's the way we can perhaps look into this shloka. Now again, now look for the words that are common to Vishnu Sahasranama. There are plenty of these words. But we go to Aurobindo translation. It says this: the great soul, O Partha, Mahatmana, the great soul. Again, soul is a very bad word, right? Mahatma. Okay, Atma can be Ada, Teti Atma, anything that is. Sometimes my Hridaya can be Atma, my Buddhi can be Atma, my Sharira can be Atma, my Indriyas can be Atma, Paramatma is also Atma. Interchangeably we use this term to represent multiple different things. So soul is a little too insufficient in terms of expressing what Atma could mean. But nonetheless, for the lack of a better word, we use that. The great soul, the Mahatma, O Partha, who dwell in the divine nature, Devi Prakriti Mashataha Mahatmana, know me as the imperishable Avyaya, from whom all existences originate, Bhutadi. That's a beautiful one. Bhutadi is originator all of From him, all the existences have come through. And so knowing, they turn to me with a soul and entire love. Ananya manasaha mam bhajanti. Right? That's the translation. This is quite good translation, right? This shloka. With that, we move on to the next shloka, shloka number 13. It reads like this. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Namaste. Sorry. Ramesh Mohoday, you want to add something?
Yeah, am I interrupting? Otherwise, you can.
Please.
Okay. What I noticed between shloka number 12 and 13, it is a total contrast. I think this is one of the styles that Krishna uses for making the differences between good and bad, or making contrast. In shloka number 12, basically the Rakshasi nature people, how they are, it is explained. And immediately after that, in shloka number 13, that Devi nature people, how they are, it is explained. So it is for the readers to understand immediately, how is the Rakshasi Pravrti people will behave, and how the Devi, Prakriti people will behave. I think that is one thing which is the contrast is visible in both the shlokas, one after the other immediately.
Absolutely. Very
Yes.
nice. Thanks, Mahodaya. I think very similarly, very similar, right? Whenever we talk about Prakriti, in the 7th chapter also, there is shloka number 14 where he talks about the Devi Prakriti, and immediately in the 15th shloka, he speaks about the Asuri Prakriti. And very beautiful. Thanks for reminding this. I just remembered one more thing. Very simple understanding of what is Devi Prakriti is people who have done the Sharanagati. Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. And Asuri, he explains, people who don't surrender unto me. Right? The first definition of what Asura, or first characteristic understanding of Asuri Devi is somebody who surrenders is Devi Prakriti, and somebody who doesn't is Asuri Prakriti. But yes, the contrast is visible, very similar to the 7th chapter, and that's the style, I think. Krishna has this way of doing it. He explains Devi Prakriti once, immediately he goes on to explain the Asuri Prakriti in chapter 7. And now in chapter 9, he first explains Asura Prabhava, and then immediately now goes on to explain the Devi Prabhava. Because I think Bhakti can only come from the Devi Prabhava people, not from the Asuri Prabhava people. Right? Because from now, he goes on to explain what do they do with that Devi Prabhava, what do they do. I think that's what we perhaps get to see from Sloka 14 onwards. But thanks very much, Ramesh Mote. That's nice. We move on to Sloka number 14 now of the 9th chapter. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataah namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataah namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. The Padacheda, it reads like this. Satatam kirtayantaha mam yatantaha cha dridhavrataha namasyantaha cha mam bhaktya nityayuktaha upasate. Right? What do we get when we unjumble these words? Anvaya yatantaha dridhavrataha satatam kirtayantaha cha mam namasyantaha cha nityayuktaha bhaktya mam upasate. Right? So the effect of the Devi Prakriti, people who surrender and acquire the Devi Prakriti, what happens to them? He explains. What does it mean? Yatantaha. Yati is a hard worker, karma yogi. Right? Yati, yatna, prayatna. Yatantaha dridha vrataha. Dridha is dridhata, determination. Vrataha. Vrata is basically rituals, austerities, things like that. So people who are constantly steadfast. Steadfast is a beautiful word for yatantaha. Yatantaha yogina is a steadfast yogi, karma yogi. Yatantaha yati. right? Yatantaha, people who are steadfast. Dridhavrataha, people who are in a determined endeavor, right? A determined austerity. Satatam, always. Satatam is all the time. Kirtayantaha, they keep adoring me. Kirtayantaha cha. Mam namasyantaha, no, they bow down to me. They do namana to me. Cha. Nityayuktaha, constantly in the yoga, constantly engaged, constantly committed, constantly doing the appropriate things. Because yukti is also appropriate. It's a yukta, sukta. Like when we say yukti is commensurate, yukti is appropriate, yukti is engaged. It's yukta. Yoga and yukta, they both share the same root, yuj, right? So nitya yukta, ever in yoga, right? Bhaktya, with complete devotion or in complete offering of themselves unto me. Mam upasate, they worship me. Upasana, upaasana, like taking shelter under him. Worship, of course, yes, that's what we understand. But upaasana, we see that like upaasana, together, to worship, to be. Look at this website. Be near to or together with. That's the kind of an impression we get, right? Upasana, be near. That's a worship. They stay near to me. Because that's what Krishna said. Tasyaham sulabha partha. Ananya cheta satatam. In the 8th chapter, I think he the similar message, but he brings in a different context altogether because now he's talking about the Devi Swabhava. Because at one point in time in the later, he says, Arjuna, you have that Devi Swabhava in excessive amount. Don't worry, don't cry. Later he says, but from that angle, as a Daivi Prakriti Ashrita Bhakta, Yatantaha, Dridavrataha, Prati, people in the Vrata, determined Vrata, Satatam Kirtayantaha, always doing my japa, okay, completely bowing down to me, always in the state of yoga, they offer themselves completely into me and they upasate, they worship me, stay near me. Right? Now, this is where I think bhakti, because bhakti is needed. Because that's what he said. Purusha saparah partha, that Purusha, that Supreme Purusha, O Partha, bhaktya labhya, is only available through bhakti, na anyaya, not by any other means. And I think he completes that discourse by expressing more and more about bhakti. And now, this sloka is a very beautiful prelude to bhakti. Right? Satatam kirtayantaha. Always adoring me. Okay, steadfast in spiritual endeavor, dridhavrataha. Okay, bowing down unto me, namasyantaha, with devotion, bhaktya, they worship me. Mam upasate, ever in yoga, nitya yuktaha. Right? This makes it a very simple translation. I think the translation on this website is quite decent for this shloka. Right? We can move on to the next shloka with that. Shloka number 15. Shloka number 15 reads like this. ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम् ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्. What do we get with the padacheda? Jnana cha api anye yajantaha mam upasate ekatvena pruthatvena bahudha vishwato mukham. When we unjumble these words, we get the anvaya, right? Anvaya reads like this. Anye, anye api jnana yajnena yajantaha ekatvena pruthatvena cha vishwato mukham mam bahudha upasate. Right? What does that mean? Anye api, others also. Anye api, others also. Who are the others? Others are basically others to Satatam Kirtayantahama. People who always do my adoration, right? People who always keep taking my name, Kirtayantahama, who always keep praising me. Those are the ones that we spoke of in the previous shloka. Anye, the others also, who are under the Devi Prakriti Ashtaha. Because we are talking about Devi Prakriti Ashtaha in two shlokas prior. He says Mahatmanaha, who are Devi Prakriti Ashtaha. So within those Mahatmanaha, there are some set who are Satatam Kirtayantahama. They always keep praising about me. And there are a few others through Jnana Yajna, they get engaged. Jnana Yajnena Yajantaha. Ekatvena, through oneness, Prathatvena, through diversity. Now, Cha Vishwato Mukham Mam, okay, by that means also me, who is the Vishwato Mukha. Vishwato Mukha is the Mukha of the entire Vishwa, right? Upasate, they worship me, they stay with me, they stay in me, right? They dwell in me, right? Now, Ekatvena Pratatvena, this is very beautiful, right? He is one, Ekatva, Pratatva, but there is also different parts into him. Pratatva, like for example, when we do the Chintana, okay, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, we say, right? But then we go on to explain Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Okay, Vijnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahma Mevi Vidam Sarvam. We go on to explain in its multiplicity. In fact, when somebody who does the Upasana of the Vishnu Sahasranama, the explanation to Vishnu Sahasranama begins or is done in the first part itself. When Bhishmacharya says, the question from Yudhishthira is, Ko dharma sarvadharmana bhavatah paramomatah kim japam muchite jantu janma samsara bandhana. Yudhishthira is inquiring to Bhishmacharya, who's that person to whom this entire Jivarashis go down to, who they get into. All of there are some Yachas Narada Matrena, Janma Samsara Bandhana. Lot of questions from Yudhishthira, right? Bhishmacharya answers, who is that person? What is that? Is the enquiry from Yudhishthira. Bhishma's answer is one word. Vishvam Vishnu. Everything is Vishnu. Oh, we don't need Vishnu Sahasranam. After that, we don't need Ekatvena. That's one. Everything is Vishnu. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. But no, he doesn't stop there. Vashakkara Vishnu. Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu Vishnu. Bhuta Krit Vishnu. Bhuta Bhrit Vishnu. Bhutatma Vishnu. Bhuta Bhavana Vishnu. He goes on to explain. Then Prataktva comes. Right? He brings one Ekatva, which is everything is Vishnu. Vishwam Vishnu. Then goes on to explain in Prataktva, in its multiplicity. This is Vishnu, that is Vishnu, and different bhava. Right? And that happens. Like when we do the Bhagavad Upasana, there is 10 names of Bhagavan. There are 24 names of Bhagavan. There are 108 names of Bhagavan. There are 1000 names of Bhagavan. There are 4 names of Bhagavan. When you say Narayana, Narayana, he is Narayana. But then Narayana has Chaturvyuha. We say Aniruddha, Pratyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, and Narayana. There is a Vyuhatmaka. So, Ekatvena Pratatvena, he is him. But he has different role to play. Right? As Pradyumna, he is the creator. As Aniruddha, he is the sustainer. As a Sankarshana, he is the destroyer. As a Vasudeva, he is the liberator. And then we see the Prataktva. Ekatva, Prataktva. Right? So there are the Jnana Yajna. So either you offer yourself unto me constantly, think about me, like how we saw in the Deva Meva Pare Yajnam, Yoginah Pavipasate, Brahmagna Vapare Yajnam, Yajne Naivo Pajukpati. And there are others in their different yajna. In the Jnana Yajna also we saw that, right? Shotradin Indriyan Yanye, Sayamagdisha Juhvati. There are different. So either you offer everything as Bhagavad Arpana, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, or you offer in Prataktva, Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Swadhyaya Yajna, Jnana Yajna, Pranayama Yajna, Prana Yajna, Apana Yajna, Ahar. There are different ways in which we can offer the Yajna. Or whatever you do, offer everything into that Brahma. Brahmarpanam Brahmavihi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam. So in the previous one, they offer themselves unto me constantly. And there are different people in their Jnana Yajna, people who are constantly looking into their, they look at the Ekatva also, they look at the Prataktva also, right? Because everything ultimately convolutes, dissolves into that one, right? That ekatva. But that one is difficult to fathom. It's difficult to understand because it becomes too woolly. Then we do the pritatvena upasati because that's the only way. But will we be able to look at all the different aspects of Bhagavan? Perhaps no. That's why in many sampradaya we call him as Ananta Kalyana Guna. No, Ananta Kalyana Guna. Indefinite. But the more and more Kalyana Gunas we can think of, the more we have understood. We'll never be able to achieve completely. They say in some of the scriptures, it's very clearly articulated. Only Brahma, Chaturmukha Brahma, has the capacity to do the chintana of the Bhagavan in his entirety. Nobody else. Nobody has even got the eligibility to do his complete upasana, but they try to get better and better about ourselves, about our own understanding, by doing prataktva chintana, prataktva upasana. As many different ways as possible, we will do his chintana, upasana. I think he doesn't stop here, right? Wherever there is something to be known more, Krishna himself elaborates. So, how to do the pritaktva is perhaps what we will look into from the next shloka. But before we wrap up, it's 9:30 now, time to wrap up for the day. We will meet week after next, on the 1st of October. Next week I'm traveling, so we will not be able to have this room. But we will meet the Saturday after next, which is the 1st of October, and continue from shloka number 16, right? Prataktva. We get to see as a Prataktva. Right? Before we wrap up, let's quickly see what Aurobindo interpretation on this shloka stands. Others, Anye, also, or api, Anye, others also, seek me out by the sacrifice of knowledge and worship me in my oneness and in every separate being or in multiple ways. And in all my million universal faces, Vishwato Mukam, Bahudha Vishwato Mukam. Vishwato Mukha, I think more of it will come in the Vishwarupa Darshana. We will wait for it. But he is the face of the entire universe. You know, evam bahuvidha yajna vitata brahmano mukhe. Whatever yajna is happening in this universe, it's happening in the face of Brahma, which means that Brahma's face is where we are. Everything is being consumed by him. Right? He says that Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. So he can't have one face and face everywhere. So he says Bahudha Vishwatomukam. He's got my million universal faces. That is his one face. His one face for us it appears like a million faces. That's why we say Sahasra Shirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. Like when we look into the same Purusha Sukta in say Samaveda, Bahuvachana gets used. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, they have 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 arms, 1,000 limbs, different ways. So that Vishwatomukha, he is the face of the entire universe. But is he the universe? He is beyond the universe. No, Sabhumi Vishwato Vrutva Atyatishtabda Shangudam. He is 10 inches beyond the Vishwa. Right? And those 10 inches are extreme because 10 signifies infinity. Dasha, also Dasha, Shata, Sahasra. These three things quite often signify Purna, Paripurnatva. Right? So Dasha means there is another thing that is entirety in itself. Purnamadaha Purnamidam. So he is the Vishwato Mukha, the million faced universal being fronting. Because he is the Bhoktaram at the end of the day, he is the consumer of everything that is happening. So basically others also, there are others, Anye api, others also, Jnana Yajnena Jantaha, who are constantly engaged in Jnana Yajna, Ekatvena cha Pritatvena Mam Vishwatomukam Bahudha Upasate. Through thought of oneness and parallelly with the thought of multiplicity, they think of me in different ways as the Vishwatomukha, as the face of the entire universe. Right? This is the bhakti. Now he is laying ground, foundation for bhakti, how we should offer ourselves into the Bhagavan. Why do we need bhakti? Because there is no way to unlock the supreme potential of our lives if we don't offer ourselves. Look at more and more people who take into the Asuri Svabhava, who see no end of themselves, who keep their life in the central part, of all the existences, they will have a very disgraceful fall. Know, greats after greats who saw no end to themselves, who got into endless amount of sense gratification after a certain point in time. Because see, because of whatever vasanas we carry, because of the circumstances, because of the karma phala, we might start off somewhere nicely. And if we think that no, we are there and we have achieved everything, then perhaps we are doing a lot of injustice. Then when we go more and more self-indulgent, Rakshasi, Mohini Shraha, then we will go downhill. It's a very fast sliding slippery slope, right? But if we really need to go further and further and further from there and really want to achieve our full potential, like a lot of people we saw in the rock music cult, there is a gang of 27, there's a club of 27, there's a 27 club they call it. Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, as recently as Amy Winehouse. There is something called the 27 Club. They all killed themselves due to overdose on drugs. Okay, overdose. Now this is absolute indulgence, self-indulgence. They were all talented, amazingly talented, right? Brilliantly talented. Their past janma karma, prarabdha has brought them to certain stage, right? And they didn't offer themselves. Like there is a death note of Kurt Cobain. I think it's wonderful to hear. It's a very educative note to read. We can clearly see how a deluded mind can be. He's expressed just before he shot himself to death. He expressed his thought. He wrote a death note. It's quite available on the net also. Look at that. It gives us a very clear, wonderful. So at 27, he achieved so much. Imagine what he would have achieved by the time he turned 60, right? There is a band, rock band called Pink Floyd. When you look at all of those individual musicians individually, very very average, very very mediocre. But when they come together, there is magic. The experience is magic, right? They have surrendered to something, maybe to the larger cause. Maybe they didn't call it Krishna, maybe they didn't call it Bhagavan, but they offered themselves to the bigger cause. There is a lead band member today called David Gilmour. I mean, for a large part of his time with the band, he was not even on the stage. He was on the side stand, as a helper in the band. There was another lead guy called Sid Barrett. Right? He used to be helping him. So when you look at that, right, we can clearly see like when we look at the sports. Look at people like Diego Maradona. I mean, such a gifted player. He won the World Cup single-handedly. Legend. Today, nobody even bothers about what happened to him. He's dead. Right? He's gone. Nobody even wants to show him that, please emulate him, child. Such a fall from disgrace. Like there are events after events where people can just lose it completely, right? So the only way we can continue achieving greater heights is by offering ourselves, like, bother less about our self-indulgences, sense gratifications, and offer. And that's where we continue growing further and further and further, because there is a lot to achieve. Looking at the messages coming till the sixth chapter, but beyond that, we have to continue the yoga siddhi and try to unlock the full potential that we all possess. Offer, Devi Prakriti, offer, then go. Less of your, keep your self-indulgences an arm's distance away. Don't let them touch you. Keep on going. And we will see more of the Bhakti Svabhava. Because Bhakti is needed, and the Bhakti Svabhava, he explains a little more of. We conclude now. We are 10 minutes crossed. We Sunday we start daily recitation of Bhagavad-Gita. In 7 days we complete the full cycle of Bhagavad-Gita Parayana in a guided chanting fashion, in an assisted chanting fashion. Every line will be chanted twice, once by somebody who will be leading us, and once by people in the speaker panel in the PTR order. The whole purpose is to get ourselves familiar. And once we complete that week's Parayana, every Saturday we conclude the weekly Parayana with chapters 17 and 18. And then we look at the Pratipadartha, primarily helping us get the fundamental understanding of Bhagavad Gita right. Next week, we will not have the Pratipadartha, but tomorrow we will start a new cycle of the Parayana every morning, 6 o'clock under Purushottam Yoga. we do the Bhagavad-Gita Parayana, primarily helping us get better and better with the Vakshuddhi, because that is important to understand the meaning of the Bhagavad-Gita shloka. And the more and more we do that, we realize that the depth of the information, depth of the meaning is never ending. That's the reason the greatest of the acharyas like Madhvacharya, for example, the first version of his Gita Bhashya said, Gitartham Vakshyami Purnataha. But he had to correct himself, saying that Gitartham Vakshyami Deshataha. Because nobody can speak the entire Yathartha, nobody can speak about it. Right? So he had to do the correction. And in that corrective behavior, he also showed us an example as to what exactly this is and where exactly is Sadhupasana. And then people like Chinmayananda, they kept on teaching Bhagavad Gita till the last day of their mortal life. Right? And because they believe that every time they speak about it, there is a new eureka moment, there is a new realization for them. So there is endless. And to experience a little bit of that bhava, we thought, okay, this is the best thing to do. Get the words right, get the pronunciation right, and let's do the chintana of the word to word. Then when we think about the shlokas on a daily basis, there are different ideas. So please do spread the word to those one or two people who would like to be part of such journey. And please do come up on stage if you have anything to add in terms of our Artha Chintana. We want to primarily understand what Bhagavan Sri Krishna Gita Acharya is trying to tell Arjuna in its original form. We conclude the session today. Before we conclude, I would request anybody interested to join me here on the stage for a small Jai Gosti in the name of Gita Acharya. Next week I am traveling, so hence we will not have this session for Pratipadartha. But from tomorrow we will have the chanting. Every day we will have the chanting. That goes without a break at least so far. And we will meet again for the Pratipadartha on the 1st of October. It will be the Navaratri time. So please do come up. On the reverse count of 3, we would like to conclude. Vishwanathji, you came up for Jai 2, 1. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatakleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namaste Vasudevaya Preyasame Priyottama Samasta Guna Sampurna Nirdoshanandadayine Mukopi Yat Prasadena Mukunda Shayanayate Rajarajayate Rikto Raghave Bharati Ramana Mukhya Pranam Sarvata Shri Gopala Krishna Priyatam Shri Krishna Namaste. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend and the time ahead. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri